Hi, morning everyone. This is Deepak Sheoran, founder CTO DwellFi. This morning from San Francisco, this is our first webinar on AI native fund operations. We'll be covering a lot and establishing, like what big AI can do, cannot do, how the fund admins can become AI native during these sessions. And we can always have follow-ups where you can reach out to me afterwards, and we are more than happy to have more one-on-one sessions or topics which we need to be covering in our next webinar. So 89% of the business leaders have invested money into AI over the last few years, and are still unhappy about their investment and the outcome which they were expecting that investment would be producing. And it's not a surprise. It's like with any technology transformation or milestone transformational potential. There are typical risks. The risk involves people don't understand technology, the limits, and you're experimenting. So there is some level of numerical percentages which is expected that where the investments are going to be lost. But the whole idea of this presentation is how we can de-risk it. How instead of basically following blogs, we can follow businesses and people who have actually delivered it and learn from them and go about implementing it. One thing very clear: big AI is very, very promising on paper and in labs, but when you really put it on real field, data sets, scenarios, it falls short. And at points you're better off doing it by yourself, and then and trust that data versus hope the data and outcomes are correct. Okay. So the real cost in fund admin as of today, when your business needs to grow, comes from humans and spreadsheets, if you think about it. And when we say spreadsheet, it's not just a Google spreadsheet. It's any tabular or Excel spreadsheet. It's any tabular data information repository system, including your GL and all other. They're all designed to store information, most likely entered by a human team, either through a bulk export import of a CSV or manually entering it through and whatnot. And then they will do all the maths. I do remember a fund admin once said, the hardest part of fund admin is not how you program a spreadsheet to do the math. The harder part is how do you get the right data into that spreadsheet, or make sure with whatever programming you have done on the spreadsheet is accurate. And that's where most of the fund admins fall short, because the talent, people, process discipline, and they end up hiring more and more people on top of whatever they already have to keep up with their operational needs. And this all can change, and we'll discuss towards the end of the session how. So these are very, very time-consuming activities, which in general are very true for based on all our interviews and conversations with various fund admin leaders. They're always backward-looking, not forward-looking. What I mean by that is you are probably in, say, Q3 this now, and you may be processing Q4 of the last year, or you may just barely got done with Q4 of the last year. And yeah, that's essentially the reality of fund administration or any other financial operations, just because the sheer volume and the type of data sets which you have to deal with keeps you in that past. And there are multiple copies of the same information, because there are different front office, back office, middle office, different layers where you're processing same or similar information, a point-in-time snapshot that leads to more issues. And the whole idea is the more right of your business outcome or process outcome you're going to find the error, the more expensive it gets. So we need to keep shifting left to a point where there's only one point of source for for a particular information. For example, if there is an investor database, there should only be one, regardless of which layer you're operating, not point-in-time copy. And then, accordingly, point in time, their capital commitments and capital calls and whatnot. So there is another myth about AI, which is, hey, we are not a technology company. We can always adopt later. We can always throw more money at this problem, and then acquire AI vendor technology in future, and then somehow become current or win the race. AI is not one of them. AI unfortunately involves, of course, a huge amount of technology investment for sure, but it's also people investment. You cannot suddenly make your entire workforce mindset AI native. You cannot replace the entire workforce with somebody new who thinks in that mindset, and thereby the real advantage in AI era is gonna be from people who start early, almost like going to a gym. If you need to win an Olympics in 5 years, you cannot spend the entire 5th year practicing. You have to spend the weekend over 5 years to get there, kind of thinking. And the sooner you start, the more exponential difference you can create from the competition around you, to the point where every quarter you have not implemented AI, you pretty much are creating an opportunity for a competition or a competing firm who is becoming AI native before you to start basically taking away your customers. And once that happens, I think there's no coming back from it. Right. So how should we redefine fund operations? So fund operations, our view on fund operation in the AI native era is the fund operations need to move from providing the operational needs of, oh, let me calculate numbers for you, let me do waterfall calculations for you, let me make sure you guys are compliant, you need to file this document on X date and things like that, to a little bit more of a value multiplier. So how fund admins can become that is essentially they should think about investing in a data lake if they have not already invested, or find a vendor or a partner which is AI native and can probably achieve that for you. Once your entire universe of unstructured data has become queryable and structured, and it's very much possible in AI era to make it happen, you basically move away from a cost center to a value multiplier. Now imagine a fund admin who's not only delivering the financial statements on time every month and every quarter and annually, but is also helping the GP prepare for a Thursday afternoon meeting with a potential new LP who will probably put in $100 million. Those operational requirements are things which today fund admins don't account for. Typically, we'll get ad hoc requests from GP, and then those are the things why GPs decide, hey, this is my go-to fund admin. And then with an infrastructure like this, you can become that go-to fund admin. So how should we now, given that the like a data lake type AI native infrastructure need to be the foundation, and we need to really bring the entire fund operations data into one platform, what should be an ideal implementation framework for something like this? So we all know what a fund admin means. Fund admin today means army of human engines, most likely in low-cost region, or in a region where you by law are required to host and employ people in a certain locations. These people download and upload a lot of documents from different portals into a Google Drive, a local laptop, or a FTP server. Then another team of makers will pick up those documents, will transcompile that into a spreadsheet. Then another set of group or people will basically take that entered data and then run through their fancy version of Excel workbook with macros and formulas and whatnot. Then comes checkers who are going to basically review all that, and their job is to push back if quality are not being met. Now imagine if a checker suddenly finds that the side letter terms for so and so investor is wrong, and therefore the entire capital call and therefore the entire NAV summary which was generated is wrong. How do you go about rearranging it? So you really need to now hunt down the person who downloaded the data, who labeled it, which document folder it was basically kept in, and then maybe you will be able to figure out and say, yes, this is wrong and here is the right amount. Either you do that, or you have an AI native infrastructure where all that information is ready to be queried to the point where you can punch in a zip code and say, hey, all investors from this zip code, or all investors who have a combination of this IRA and are investing through their retirement accounts and things like that. The system can produce all the at your fingertips, and that allows a checker to not only become a checker where they are pinpointing things, but they can also help the team resolve instead of redoing the entire work. So the whole work basically now becomes Monday morning, your team comes in, they review the exceptions. Exceptions can be as simple as the data is missing, go back to the customer. So you go back to the customer brings back the data. The moment the data comes back, the email agents can pick it up and actually redo the maths to report you new exceptions if you think about it. So it's a whole different world where you are a step ahead, not behind. So a lot of customers do ask, like, hey, this is all great, but how do we go about it? And the natural tendency, if you have any grain of engineering talent, is let me solve the most exciting problem. The most exciting problems typically are the ones which we should not solve in the eyes of a business. In the eyes of a business, the ones we should be touching is the quick wins. Quick wins de-risk your technology risk, the people risk, if you think about it, and start creating bandwidth, which otherwise won't be happening because you signed up for something really, really big, if you think about it. So in every business, every fund operations, the recommendations we give customer, and customers also agree, and this is how they typically implement this, is what are my business processes from nav to recon to couple generation events where I need a QA, or in this case, in this industry, I need an auditor. And the job of an auditor is to make sure that my machinery of people and system and whatever exists today is producing an outcome which my customer can trust. And that is very easy now, which is you bring in an AI auditor, you give you a checklist. The AI auditor can really go through it and then pinpoint all the issues at scale really fast, and help you make sure there is a baseline quality expectation out of you as a business or as a machine, if you think about it. Once those are done, then you can start shifting left. And by left, I means you just keep tackling, a little bit more harder problem than the quick wins, and then on and on and on, to the point where we are in a conversation with customer where they're saying, hey, we want to reimagine the general ledger itself. Of course, that requires a very different level of maturity, but that's how you should go about it. Not change the general ledger as the first bullet point when you're re-implementing your AI or transforming yourself into AI native business. And what this does, as you are basically going through this quick win mindset, is creating exponential bandwidth at a firm level. And then that gives people time to think, invent, test, prototype. And then that's where you become a business which can be differentiated from the herds of several other competition out there, and become that service provider which customers really would like to sign up and give their business to. Yeah, this is an example, and this is an example we have been, like a story which have been repeating with every fund admin we have discussed. The NAVs are like almost like a tax event on a personal level, if you think about, which is like there's so much data which you have to gather, compile, move around, and maybe missing also, depending upon which human being named which file what and which folder they dropped in, did they follow the process. And then so you begin Monday, and if you are really, really efficient by the weekend or Thursday-ish, you will have an insight into what's broken, what's missing. And once that happens, you will send an email to the client saying, hey, so-and-so subdoc is not signed, or so-and-so bank statement was not the right bank statement when you uploaded it because of this, that, whatever. And now the customer is unhappy that, hey, we are about to transmit this document or whatever, and now you're telling me we're missing this and that. So it creates a lot of friction, but this is unfortunately the average state of the industry right now. Where teams are trying to move with AI or other systematic automations is, how do I get an employee or a checker on Monday morning 8 a.m. Where they're looking at the first draft of the nav recon done, or nav computation done by the AI agent, where the human in the loop comes in, they review outcomes, they right. So the human in the loop comes in, and they ask all the questions, whatever auditing questions they need to ask. And once these questions are answered, either the system can recover and produce a final draft, or it'll give you a list of questions which you can send it to your customer to to get it resolved. But now you can send that email on Tuesday, and hopefully you will get a clarification within the same week, and you can produce a report by Friday as compared to the following Friday or following Fridays, depending upon how you're going about it. But yeah, that's essentially how AI native fund operations can become if done correctly. So this is a little bit of history of how we have seen the industry evolving. So I think before 90s or 80s, only very large accounting firms can were able to afford calculators. Forget about anything else. Everything was numerical, if you think about it, or at least at a global level, that was an average statement. So Microsoft Office spreadsheet era began. It was a game-changing thing, if you think about it. Imagine a financial firm which got calculators, and now mathematical errors are not a thing. You are able to process a lot more data. So of course it was better than the previous world, but then that was not enough. You need conditional logics things. That's where macros were invented, if you think about it. So Microsoft introduced macros. Macros allowed people to now not only have a calculator, but a calculator which can do a little bit beyond math, if you think about it. It's like a conditional math. I apply this interest rate under certain condition and this. But that required you to have people who have a semi-software engineer mindset, because you need to program macros. From there, the spreadsheet becomes a living and breathing portable software, but very much fragile, where there are 5 or 6 versions of this. The software discipline was not the same of a firm which can run CI/CD infrastructure. And that's where the integrated platform came in. So these integrated platform took away the responsibility of the most common frameworks or processes which can be automated into them as a click button outcome, if you think about it. And they also become the system of record. One problem with these systems was, as the industry landscape is changing, the fund structures are changing, more creative fund structures are coming, this platform also started lagging. So features, blockers become, you can think of it as a roadmap item. We will do this new fund structure support by Q4 of this year and things like that. But as a fund admin, as a service operation or a managed service customer, you cannot wait for that. So what do you end up doing? So you will use a system of record to export input information, but then use spreadsheet to maintain or manage exceptions. And that is where we are, if you think about it, up until maybe a few years when AI actually came in. So what AI really is doing is not some magical thing. What it's really doing is combining this, solving all these problems over time, where the technology have transformed people's behavior. So AI can now real time take any sort of data in any language, any structure, and transform that into a spreadsheet like structure at near 100% accuracy. Once that is done, AI can write real time conditional software, which it itself can test. So you don't have to rely on human expertise, if you think about it, to automate very fund specific business rules, if you think about it. And once all that is done, AI can also apply, abstract business checklist, which is, things like, hey, is there a dollar sign in front of money somewhere? And is there a signature on that page? Is there a confidential something written at the bottom of the report being generated? So all that aspects of it, which were previously being delegated to humans, can be achieved by AI, if you think about it. But it's still very broken, if you think about it. There is Copilot, there is Claude, and there are many things. But how do you really build a agentic fund operation platform or a system where you not only the technology, you as a firm is transforming yourself? That's the AI native fund operations, AI native operations, AI native, whatever. And that's where a lot of customers are reaching out to us. And it's very, very interesting to see how some of these big funded firms are really thinking a step ahead. And that is where the conversation now begins. Should we build in-house? Should we buy? And we'll go on that. So important thing is, where do we start? Should I hire a head of AI and then they bring in people and become an engineering firm? Should I buy Claude and then that becomes the de facto thing? Should I buy a hardware in my data center and then start building it? And the key is I think none of them are right or wrong. It really depends on your approach, where once you made a decision that XYZ is what I need, what am I going to do with it? So most of the time, the people are not focused on the business outcomes and winnable, measurable small business outcomes. They are focused on more fancy 2, 3, 4 year roadmap, and by the time it's too late. So the recommendation is high volume, clear rules, low judgment, fund operation activities, which you can go to the ground level and ask yourself a very simple question. So your first line managers, go and ask them, if you have to support 20 other customers tomorrow, what do you need? And if he answers, I need to hire a person because of XYZ, and if that XYZ falls under the criteria of the haze because of the volume, it's just a simple stuff as download and transcribe, conditionally reconcile, and that becomes your month one agent goal, if you think about it. And we have helped customer achieve it. I mean, great example would be is there was a customer, they had about 700-800 credit unions. They had few people where every month their job is to go and download those bank statements and then put them in spreadsheets, and from there accounting begins. So the idea is if your business needs to grow, you need to hire those people. Of course, there is security risk and all other aspects of it, but you need to hire more people because it's just a volume problem. There's nothing complex about it. And that was a perfect example of how AI can come in and take away something so laborious and free bandwidth for those two people so that they can move up higher up in the food chain, if you think about it. So do that. Then what we should avoid? We should avoid fancy, high visibility, highly complex workflows. Most of the time, not a single person can describe that in an hour. These processes are full of exceptions, and that's where all that 89% investment got failed, because you started with something super crazy and complex where nobody knew what this business, this process is very exception heavy. So you are never able to build an AI agents which you can trust. So avoid them until you have done all the simple ones first. And the idea is set up the goals in a way that you can achieve them in 2 weeks or a month. Do not have a goal where an AI agent or an outcome or a measured outcome can be built or delivered to the business in 2 weeks to a month. If it takes more than that, it's not granular enough. Break it down. Okay. And the result of all this is gonna be you are moving your humans from left to right, but automation from right to left, if you think about it. And then you are eventually gonna get to a point where you are gonna really solve the hardest of the hardest problem in your business, and then eventually become AI native. So what are the 4 things I would suggest that you all can take back to your teams, businesses, or with you in your sleeps to think over and see how you can have a better day tomorrow, thinking about serving your customers better? Okay, so big AI, including Claude, Fable, and other ones, they're amazing. Fable is an amazing AI LLM model or LLM model from Claude, but can you afford it? Can you really run it on a million document reconciliation? Because no, that is where really the context engineering and agent harness and everything else comes in. So a lot of the time, this is what gets discussed and recommended in boards. Oh, we will buy this and that and done, because they're not looking at what it means to operationally, bring something like that back or run. So AI technology is not bad, but it is commercially viable. Can you afford it? Can you run it? Will the export import control laws will allow you to run a super fancy model in the geographical region you are in and are serving? If not, then what is your strategy? That is where finding a cloud agnostic, platform agnostic, LLM agnostic AI vendor or a partner is very, very important. Okay. AI native close is the end outcome, if you really think about, which is how can I make sure none of my team members in fund admin are dealing with unstructured information. They are into the realm of approvals. So they are not doing maths manually or spreadsheets or VLOOKUPs. They're not entering in, what do you call, typing things in. That's literally AI native fund operations, if we think about it, because that has been historically the biggest time sink or labor sink for companies. Okay, so again, start small, start what you can deliver within a month or a quarter. Do not think beyond that, and start. I think more important thing than getting it right is starting. It's like going to a gym. You can go to a gym, you can show up to the door and come back. Eventually, you will have the courage to get in and then do more with it. But if you never go there, you will never be able to start, and you will never ever have that exponential lead time which you need to have against the competitors in your business areas, if you think about it. But yeah, that's about it. I hope this entire session on how a firm can be AI native was extremely helpful. Open for feedback. Reach out if you feel this is relevant. All there. Thank you, everyone. Okay, there is a question. Could you walk us through the economics of AI native fund operations? What's the cost of running? So yeah, so that's a very, very important question, which is, say, technology is great, but what's the point of having a car which you can fill up the tank and drive? So DwellFi have a way where we give deterministic pricing, and deterministic pricing pretty much means the context engineering, choosing the right LLM, how to make this process predictable is an engineering problem, not a business problem or an operations problem. So you come in, you define a volume, or you define a problem you want to solve, and how you solve with a human team today, if you think about it, which is, I will be delivering you the fund administration services for a fund of a certain size at $30,000 a year. That's your budget as a fund admin. Now, you cannot change that just because now you are AI native. Yeah, you may be able to charge a little bit more, but expectation is actually other way around. The GPs want you to charge less. So if you think about it, they wanted to probably get to 20K a year. And if that is true, then how can you afford an AI solution which probably will help you manage that fund at $100,000 a year? So it have to be within that budget which you today are operating on. And for that to happen, the vendors who are coming in, they cannot talk about credits, tokens, and stuff like that. They really need to talk about how you talk to your customers, which is, you are committing a price, so does that AI vendor need to. This is how we work with customers. And any other engineering optimization, from hardware to acquiring GPUs to having multi-year contract with GPU providers, to make sure there is a predictable baseline cost and it's only getting cheaper, is the job of the technology providers, not the business consumer. And that's how DwellFi essentially ensures that your fund operation, as you are adopting technology, your infrastructure or cloud bill is not becoming exponentially a hockey stick. It is probably a flat line. Great question. Awesome. All right, there's one more question. Okay, so the question is, how does DwellFi fits in a large fund, an enterprise fund ops? So a large enterprise fund ops, if you really think about, it's like owning a big government firm in a nicer way, if you think about it, which is, you have a lot of support roles. You have HR, you have legal, you have sales and operations and whatnot. But everybody is being hired to do only one thing, which is, hey, we are in the business of fund operations. We need to maintain funds for our customers. We need to make sure they are compliant. We need to make sure all the accounting principles are followed and things like that. So if you think about it, the hero team is the fund operation teams, and they are the ones typically the largest footprint in terms of billing and whatnot. And then they are also the ones because of which the whole growth trajectory of the business is decided. So that's what DwellFi is basically targeting, if you think about it, which is, say, how do we help this team do more with less, where the whole AI story, the way the internet got it, like, yeah, let me bring in AI and I can fire everybody, and I will be alone with my board and we can have a business which is awesome. That's not the story. The story is, you avoid hiring untrained people. Whoever you have hired and trained them for a year or so, and they are your best players, you give them better tools and equipment to produce more outcome without hiring new roles, and thereby avoiding costs around how do you hire somebody, how do you train them, and how do you do that? So the future is gonna be difficult for a lot of personas, but in general, that's how we see any technology and any AI platform which can come into the business and help them transform their fund operations or operations into AI. Awesome. All right. So I think there are no more questions in the room, but I genuinely appreciate everybody staying in and listen, and thank you. Next up, we'll be talking about how do you augment bandwidth for operation teams. See you all on September 22nd. Thank you.